Recently I made a poll asking if you guys wanted to see the progress on my layout, and since it won by a pretty significant margin, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now keep in mind the table itself was completed very recently, and there's a lot that I still plan to do with it, so for now I may not have a lot to show, but very soon I plan for that to change. So consider this a part 1 into the updates of the new layout. The table itself was a project that I would start with a friend a couple of weeks ago. The table I had before was very small and couldn't really fit much on it, so he and I would put our woodworking to the test and stain and finish a new 4x8, as this could easily fit at least 2 loops of track. We would then add siding to the table and load it up onto a trailer, which unfortunately ended up being a little small, but with some effort we were able to get the new table into place. Now I could actually start on detailing the table, and I would start with test fitting the new Kato track that I had recently acquired. At this point I had decided on a branch line and a main line, but trying to find the proper radius to fit on the table was tricky. For a while I was just stuck with 2 straight lines, but eventually I was able to figure it out, and now the lines are actually completed. In time I'd like to add some sidings to both, as well as a crossover track so the models can go between them, but for now I think it's a good start to actually have them as serviceable. I guess the best place to start is the small yard area that I have going on, which in time will definitely be expanded on, but at the moment features an engine shed, as well as the only Kato switch that I happen to own at the moment, as well as some miscellaneous props and buildings. Here we can see Henry in the shed waiting for his next train, and picking behind him is Rheneas. Currently he only sits on a small piece of track, but in the near future I'm hoping to add a narrow gauge portion to the layout itself, so his home is soon to change. Unfortunately he's more of a prop piece for now though. Next I suppose is the signal box and gantry, which like to change locations, but these buildings in specific are special as they were some of my first. Not only that, but they also happen to hold my Thomas and the Magic Railroad pin, which is not only my favorite movie, but also comes from my good friend Marvin Jerry. The right corner houses the layout controls, which as seen here are 2 Kato controllers, one for the branch line and one for the main line, and temporarily next to that are my Flames of War tanks, specifically a fleet of Shermans. I would like to build a battlefield scene, but at the moment it's just fun to watch the engines go through them. Unfortunately, the back corners are temporarily kinda barren, though I do have plans for both of them, but normally I use this free space to put my Thomas and Friends photo cell on display, which also was very kindly given to me by my friend Marvin Jerry, just like the pin featured up front. Next we have the warehouse, which sits between the tracks, though with time it's likely I'll move it elsewhere. I also use it as storage for my miscellaneous vehicles, and beside that is a small station with Birdie at the railroad crossing. In the middle are currently my 2 model displays, one of a miniature Brendam docks and another of a small engine shed. At the moment I sit locomotives that I'm not running on the layout on these. Lastly, but definitely not least as it's one of my favorite additions, is Harold and his helipad, currently featuring a small silo and a small fueling tanker. In time I'll likely change the location of this as well. For now it's doing its job of looking good as the engines go by. Unfortunately that's the majority of the layout for now, but with time I'm definitely looking to expand this as well as the track that's on it. Soon I'm hoping to invest in an actual signaling system, as well as some switches and some new locations for the layout. Again, consider this more of a part 1 than anything. I likely won't be adding a grass mat or anything like that, as I've actually grown to like the simplicity of just the finished wood, but either way I'll be detailing around that and soon I hope to light all the buildings. Unfortunately it's just a step at a time though. Now that we've covered all of that, let's see some of the models at work. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. HOOO layout, to say the least, has changed since the last time I made a video about it. It could be argued this has happened several times over actually. Not because I don't enjoy the layouts or what I'm doing, instead it was more of a challenge to myself to see if I could do better. And personally I think one of the best features that the layout recently got was the inclusion of lighting. Using the Just Plug lights by Woodland Scenics, I would do my best to light up several different parts of the layout, including the crossing, signal box, station, and several other places. But my favorite part was the engine shed, and due to how much I enjoyed this inclusion, I would often find myself running these locomotives at night, or at the very least in a simulated night. And even for shots where I wasn't doing such, I would still like to have the lights on, as this would not only help with world building, but scene building as well, and in my opinion really helped to bring the layout a step further. But, you know me, as nice as this was, it still didn't really feel like enough. I just felt as if I could do more, and even though I did enjoy the look of the finished wood, I would start making pockets of detail for the layout, and honestly just experimented with how it would look if I were to do it. And honestly, the more I did it, the more it happened to grow on me. And for practice, I would start making small mock-ups of some of my favorite locations. For example, Harold Telepad, as you can see here. And it's doing this that would ultimately seal the layout's fate. As the more it all came together, the more I just wanted to do the entire thing. And the next day, that's exactly what I would set out to do. Here we can see the grass being placed on the 4x8 before I went to glue it. I always recommend a test fit before you do something like gluing down a grass mat, and got myself some basic scenery to start the project. But at the moment, only so much can be done as I'm currently waiting for 2 Kato switches to come in the mail. But regardless, I've still been doing my best to do some test fitting and figure out exactly how I want the layout to look whenever I am able to do such. At the moment, I've decided on one main loop, that being the main line, which will tie into a larger yard section which I'm currently trying to build. It will feature a track that runs directly into the engine shed, and another that can run into either stall of my double engine shed. This build was pretty basic and honestly just consisted of taking the old Bachmann Tidmouth sheds and making it a bit smaller, only building 2 stalls instead of 5, which truth be told I only did because Kato doesn't have an HO turntable. Plus my Bachmann one doesn't function the best and I really don't want to try to convert it. So a large engine shed it is. And even though I can't glue any of the detail that I would like to down right now, at the moment I'm following the track with some light green clump foliage, as I want to find a way to detail the track without actually ballasting it. I've never had a good experience ballasting a track, so with this I'm trying to avoid it at all costs. And honestly I don't think it looks too bad. I definitely laid it on a bit heavy the first time around, but now that I have a better idea of what I'm doing, I feel more confident in doing the entire layout. This method I can already tell is going to take forever, but I don't think any harm is going to come out of taking my time with it. And that's the biggest tip I can give to anyone trying to do this as well. Once you get an idea of how you want your model to look, make sure you take your time in actually getting it there. You want to be able to figure out what works the best for you, and having to constantly go back and change something can definitely be costly, and you always want to have the ability to change your mind. As I'm sure you guys noticed, I did add an N-scale loop to the layout itself, this more for the purposes of the narrow gauge locomotives, and this is something that I plan to keep on the new layout, though its size will likely be brought down by quite a bit to accommodate the yard area. It's just too fun of an idea to pass up on. The lights from before are still intact and doing just fine. Of course, something I plan to implement on the new layout as well, but until I'm able to complete the track itself, I don't really want to drill any holes or start the wiring process, as where I want these to be placed is very likely to change. Don't worry, I'm definitely going to still have these guys around, just probably not in the same spots. Besides featuring a large yard area, there's also some other locations I want to do my best to build, one of those being the scrapyard. And as some of you guys on Twitter have already seen, I've been doing my best to create some set pieces for that as well. I still haven't exactly decided what I want to do with everything, but at the very least know I want to create a scene like that. So at the moment it comes down to a scrapyard area, a large yard area, and a warehouse area. Of course there's going to be more than that, I just still have to decide on what exactly they'll be. While even now part of me misses the look of the finished wood, I still have a good amount of confidence in myself for finishing this layout, and even still finding a way to bring it above what it once was. As much as I enjoyed it, I still felt as if I could do better, and that's more or less the goal with trying to bring in a more world-like element. As different as it is to me, at the very least I'm having fun in doing it, and that's really all that matters. Either way though, I'm still keeping a watchful eye on how this is going to turn out, and hopefully you guys are too, because this boring look isn't going to be around for much longer. If you guys want to see more of this, be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, as not only do I keep up with projects a lot more frequently on those, but I also have a Patreon where you can see these projects early, where I also plan to create tutorial segments. So if you haven't checked any of those out, the links for all 3 will be in the description. And if you guys have any ideas or recommendations for things I should add to the layout, be sure to let me know down in the comments, as I'm all ears. If you guys did enjoy looking at everything with me, be sure to like and subscribe, as there's always more train stuff on the way. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next Alright, you all have spoken. It's time for part 3. As a lot of you guys have seen in the background of some of my latest videos, the HO scale layout has gone through several changes. As over time I've been able to do and add a lot, but have only really shared pictures of it, as I wanted to make sure there was plenty done before I showed it off to you guys. And thankfully I think we finally reached that point, or at least a good point to talk about, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know a model train set is never actually done, so expect to see more and a couple things change. But as of now, there's still plenty I want to show you guys and talk about. So without any more delay, let's get into it, starting with the station. Well, passenger station, I should say. As I'm sure some of you guys have recognized, this is Bachmann's resin Maithwaite building that I've modified a little bit to fit into the layout. Currently there's only 2 passengers on the platform, but I plan to add more. I'm not really a big fan of just gluing a bunch of stuff to the platform, and though it's a bit hard to tell right now, it is lighted on the inside, which just like the other buildings and lights is done with Woodland Scenic's Just Plugs. Beside it currently sits a switch tower, which unfortunately at the moment isn't lighted, but it does have a lamppost next to it to light up the trains and such that go by. It also wouldn't be right if Maithwaite didn't have a proper flower bed, so using some shrubs and different colored plants, I detailed the right side of it as well, with different yellow, red, and pink flowers. A simple process, but one that I think paid off. Behind the station, currently I'm working on a parking lot of sorts, which currently only holds a take and play birdie, but features asphalt and a sidewalk that leads up to the station, so any of his passengers can load onto the coaches. Behind Maithwaite is another resin building made by Bachmann, that being the warehouse, and currently this is lit up with red LEDs, as I like it to have more of an ominous feel to it. Inside of the warehouse is currently a truck with a flatbed, and on that flatbed is Blackout Branchline, who I imagine is either getting worked on or repaired. Now, behind the warehouse is a narrow gauge portion, which admittedly is kind of boring right now. It's kind of just an oval with 2 different platforms, as I'm really not sure what I want to do with this portion yet, but like other parts of the layout, it features a resin building, as well as a lamppost to illuminate the engines as they go by. However, I'll likely end up moving or replacing some of the things in this area. Now, what I'm sure you're most curious about is what's on top of the narrow gauge portion, and literally blocking half of the loop. And that's something that I can't tell you right now. It is a project that I plan to keep you guys updated on though, as this portion of the layout is the portable one, and what you're seeing now works as a separate table. Instead, it just sits above the big one thanks to some pegs that I installed on its bottom, and also kind of doubles as a tunnel for the other engines. Be sure to keep your eyes open though, because I can't wait to show you guys what exactly this is going to be. I just have to finish some work on it. Next up we have the yard area, which also has some new features, as well as detailing, which I'm sure you guys have seen in the background. In the front there's a small lake area with a canoe and the body of an old steam engine, which I say ran into the lake and they left there. As I'm sure you can tell, this still has a long way to go and isn't anywhere near done, but still was something that I thought would be a fun idea, even though admittedly it is a bit morbid. But hey, it looks fun. Behind this is one of Bachmann's resin engine sheds, which I added a lamppost in front of, as well as interior lighting to the shed itself. And behind this is the double engine shed, which, you guessed it, is lighted too, as is the signal box, which also features a lamppost next to it as well. So now that we've talked about everything down here, let's focus on up here for a second, which at first glance may seem like a shelf, and partially is a shelf, but using Bachmann's auto reverse track, I was able to make a small point-to-point track on this shelf that automatically stops and sets the engine off again. For fun and to experiment, I would detail half of the track, since ballasting and such isn't normally my thing, but being Bachmann's easy track, I found it appropriate, and now half of the shelf functions as a nice setup and the other half as an actual shelf. Besides this though, all I've really done is detail some of the track on the main layout, and here and there would add different trackside scenery bits. I'm doing my best to take my time with the main layout and let it come together slowly, but as you can see, plenty has happened and will continue to happen. So even though there's not much to it, hopefully you guys enjoyed taking a look at my HO scale layout, and be sure to keep your eyes open since there's plenty coming after it. The process of starting a model train layout or modeling trains period seems daunting, and trust me, at times it can be, but nothing makes me more happy or proud than coming home and running my engines on a layout that I built myself. And trust me guys, if I can do it, anyone can do it, and I highly recommend that you give it a try if you never have before. It's a better addiction than some others out there, and hopefully this has shown you that it's not too hard or difficult of a process. It just takes time and a pretty solid will. Just don't stress it too much and make sure you have fun, since that's really all that matters. And as always, thank you guys again for watching, and hopefully the build-up was somewhat worth it. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to like and subscribe since it lets YouTube and me know that you liked the video. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.
I'm semi, I stay automatic. Money add then multiply. I call it mathematics.
been a while since we've seen my HOOO layout, and as you could have guessed, it is definitely not the same that it used to be. Hell, by the time I post this video, it likely will have changed in some way. But honestly, I think that's one of the fun things about having a layout like this. And honestly, with how overdue this video really is, even if there's not a lot to show, I would still like to show you guys what I currently do have, and give you guys a bit of insight into what's to come for the layout. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the layout now, or as I like to call it, the industrial age. So let me go ahead and explain one thing. Yes, the grass mat is gone, but there is a reason for that. While I did like the grass and scenery of the previous layout, there's only so much you can do on that grass before it starts to fade away. And my grass mat was pretty quickly getting there, because I constantly would change and move things on that layout. But not just that, with me lighting up the buildings like I do, and all of the other things that I would do on the layout besides, adding the grass and other things like that, the finished wood in a way sort of accents it all, and personally I really like the look of it. I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me saying that, but personally I prefer a more simplistic look, and if I'm not going to do scenery, I'm going to make up for it in other ways. One of the ways that I'm currently doing it is with big buildings. Let me correct that, big lighted buildings. The first of which is this mine. This is actually a Walther's HO scale kit, one that I would buy basically completed on eBay, but when it came my way, I would modify it a little bit to make sure the engines could actually pass through it, add a few details here and there, and finally light it as well, then adding it to the layout. Currently it stands as one of the landmarks on the layout, probably the largest one right now, and I kinda like that. The idea that the engines are working in this industrious area is more or less the goal, and the weathering and finish on this really help to achieve that. There are two tracks that pass through it, one being the main line, and one being a branch line, which is the inside loop, with the third track being a siding that actually comes off of that line. There's a siding that goes directly under the mine, and one that's in front of that. Besides that is my signal box, which is also lighted, and around that and the mine itself are several lampposts. These help to illuminate the area and the tracks themselves. Further down the line is a small farm area. Here we can see Terrence and some pumpkins. And there's also a lamppost here next to a small red shed. There's also a whistle sign to let the engines know to be careful, as soon I'll likely be adding animals to this area and we don't want them on the track. Behind that is Black Folly Castle, Harold's helipad, and a photo cell that I would receive from Marvin Jerry. One that I just like to keep close. That and it looks really good on the layout. And next to that is the Bachman Warehouse, also featuring a gift from Marvin Jerry, being the Thomas and the Magic Railroad clip, as well as other small details. Currently Bulgy is residing next to it for some reason, probably plotting something mischievous. Unfortunately, as of now, the rest of the set still has quite a bit to go. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I want in these larger areas, besides light them up, but have a lot of ideas as to what I could put there, so expect an update on that soon. Also, for those wondering, the layout that sat on top of the layout originally was going to be the Little Western. A lot of you guys were right. But as you can see, it's not on the layout right now, and neither is the in-scale loop that I used to have in the middle, and there's a couple reasons for that. The reason the top table is gone is, one, I'm trying to repurpose it as of now, and two, I'm trying to finish up what exactly that'll be, and the in-scale loop moved so I could make another separate layout, one that was restrictively for the in-scale locomotives. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the top table for that right now. I've thought about using it as a mountainous terrain, and being elevated it would help with that, but I'm not really certain. I guess we'll see with time. As of now, the few things that I'm certain on are, one, I want to add the Kato HO scale signaling system, and two, more lights. I just want to make the layout look as good as I can, while still maintaining this simplistic vibe that it currently has. And honestly, right now I'm pretty satisfied with it. My Bachman Maithwaite station and all of that other stuff is still in my possession, don't worry. They're currently just awaiting other projects, or at the very least, just a way for me to incorporate them into the layout right now. Like I said, there's a lot of things that I'm still trying to iron out, but I'm still proud about where it sits now, and hopefully you guys still enjoyed taking a look at it with me. But now that we've talked about all of the boring stuff and you've seen what's changed, let's just see some trains run. Like, shut up, dude. Let's go. Come on, hurry up, hurry up. as of now, I'm gonna do my best to keep you guys more updated on the layout, as I really believe I'm coming down on an idea that I can really expand upon. The reason the layouts change so much is because I'm just so indecisive. I'll get a new idea, run with it, and next week I'll have another one. So for a while I would just do my best to come down on something that I would really be happy with. And what you're seeing now is, I guess, the experimental results of that. I definitely think I'm going in the right direction. But again, who knows? The beautiful thing about model trains is it's your world. And if you ever want to change it, it's not too hard to. That being said, it's not too easy to go back to the world that you just changed it from, but it's okay, we aim to look forward here. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe for even more train content. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
I'm gonna tie your dad up and we're gonna fucking bomb it! Fucking too far this time, fucking...
Towel him.
I'm not sure about you guys, but one of the hardest things for me to model is layouts, and really that comes down to one thing. I'm indecisive, and I'm sure that's something you guys have been able to tell. Every time there's an update on my HO or OO layout, it's basically completely different than it was before, and that's just because I constantly have new ideas, and working in such a large space enables me to do such. Though in retrospect, it makes it impossible to come down on something final, and for the longest time this has been something that's bothered me. But not too long ago, I would actually find a way to negate this, or at the very least find a good workaway around it. That being sub-layouts, or compact layouts, that are made to be very small, and in retrospect put anywhere. And for one reason or another, I often find making and completing these much easier, as since I'm working with such a confined space, there's only so much I can do anyway, so planning out what exactly you want it to be is essential. As some of you guys may remember, the first video I ever posted on this channel was actually a compact layout, a 009 or HO narrow gauge one. And today we'll be taking a look at a new one of these, or I guess the beginning stages of it, and hopefully see how far I've come in the year I've been on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get into it. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is the narrow gauge loop line. Now, as a whole, this layout's pretty simple. It's just a circle, and the track featured is Tomix's compact track. But where I really wanted this layout to shine was in its scenery, which as you can see I've started applying in two different ways. One in a more industrious area, and the other more in a field, more farm-like area, cut more or less right down the middle. And the reason for this is I wanted to be able to bring a bit of both into the same layout. So I thought it'd be fun to give one half to one and the other half to the other. And so far I think it's definitely paid off. It really helps to give the layout a unique look. The track itself is ballasted with Kato ballast and held in place with Woodland Scenic spray tack, and starting with the industrial area, at the moment this consists of a very small fueling depot, which I like to use for my vehicles, as well as different trackside pieces, for example these pieces of wood or that wheel. There's also the Bachmann corrugated hut building, which takes up and sits in the corner, and ultimately I'm quite undecided on how I want this final bit to look. I know I want it to be jam-packed with a bunch of little stuff, I just don't know exactly what I want that little stuff to be. The only thing I knew for certain was I wanted this area to be able to feature other characters, more specifically road vehicles. And with this little area in the front, thankfully I think I've achieved that. I can have Caroline, whenever I make Sir Handel, I'll definitely have to have George there, and since Rusty's on the layout, we also have Thumper. But so far, that's the industrial area. Now switching over to the farm-like area, which is honestly my personal favorite, there's a bit more to see. For this part's detail, I've used a Bachmann trackside shed, which in one area I filled up with hay, and around it added a horse, a pumpkin patch, and different clumps of overgrown bushes on the sides of the track, which I actually liked so much that I added it to the industrial area too. I like to put Terrence here, but would like to find some more farm-like scenery to fill up the rest of the areas. So unfortunately, just like the last, this is very much work in progress, but honestly shouldn't be too hard to finish. As you can see, there's still quite a bit to go. There's plenty of details I want to add to the layout. Unfortunately, I just haven't gotten around to doing them yet. So expect updates on this little thing. And if you guys have any suggestions or ideas on what should go on this layout, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. And now that we've talked about what's on the layout, let's get into how exactly I made the thing. So the piece of wood that the layout sits on is literally a piece of scrap wood. I'm not exactly sure how big it is, I probably should measure it, but me and my friends often do a lot of projects that require wood, and this small square piece would fall into my belonging. It sat around for a long while, but when I would get the Tomix compact track, I found it a perfect fit for this piece of wood, and pretty quickly the rest came together. It was as simple as apply the grass, apply the stone/brickwork, put the track on top of it, secure it all, and start ballasting and detailing. Like I said previously, the ballast that I used for this track was actually the standard Kato ballast, and while this was probably the hardest part, it was made a lot easier with the spray tack made by Woodland Scenics, though the drying took at least 2 to 3 hours, so there was a lot of waiting. But once it was dry, I got to work on figuring out what exactly I wanted the buildings to be. The only one that's actually glued down at the moment is the fuel pump for the vehicles. Though at the moment I'm pretty solid on where I want these to be, that could very well change. That, and for transporting it, it's a little easier to not have to worry about the tall buildings. The pumpkin patch was made from spare pumpkins that I had laying around my room. Actually, all of the detail you find on this is just spare parts that I had laying around my room. But thankfully it all came together not only quickly, but very well as well. Once I got the idea, I just got to work. And unfortunately didn't take very many videos or pictures of what I was doing. But here is the current end result, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So now that we've got all of that boring stuff out of the way, let's go ahead and see this thing in action. I know this is an 009 layout, I just couldn't help myself. A lot of the modeling I do is, well, mania driven. What I mean by that is I'll often get an idea and just try to run with it, not always putting a whole lot of thought into it. Sometimes this yields fun and pretty cool results, sometimes maybe not, and recently I would start a project that was very much that. Christmas time and winter is my favorite time of the year. Personally, I really enjoy cold weather, and I wanted to build a layout that would capture that. Last night, I decided to set out to do that, and today I'll be showing you guys the result of such. In a single day, I managed to get pretty far, and really quick I'll walk you guys through everything I did to make this. Like I said, it's just kind of an idea I had, so it doesn't really have a lot of basis, but it was still fun and I'm still pretty proud of the result. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be showing you guys my frozen lake layout, and here's how I built it. So this layout, believe it or not, is the same layout that was seen in my first video. Unfortunately, as time went on, that layout would be taken up, and for a while I just had the box it sat in laying around. The idea I had for the new layout was an elevated one that would sit on a frozen lake with a mountain in the middle, and I figured this box would be the perfect place to build it in, but laying my Woodland Scenics water into it would probably not yield the best results. As you guys can see here, the wood itself is actually open, and it likely would just leak through and cause a big mess. So using some glue, I would go around the inside of the box. It was also at this point I decided to paint the bottom of it, being a mix of black, green, and brown spray paints. Quick note, if you're going to spray paint inside, please make sure it's in a well-vented area. This was just late at night, and personally I don't like spray painting when the sun's not out. Next would be fitting the track into the box, and seeing where everything laid. I used this step to place the pillars, and glued each of those down where they would need to sit. Lastly came placing the mountain in the middle to see if it would fit. Thankfully it did, and work was able to start. The first thing I did was apply the water inside, as this normally takes about 24 hours to dry, and I wanted to start on it as soon as I could. I made sure the entire bottom board was covered, and then started adding some clump foliage, this being along the mountain itself and the sides, as well as having some built up on the pillars. This ended up drying a lot faster than I thought it would. I think it took about 2.5 hours. So after a game of Cold War Zombies, I started on adding the snow detail, which honestly was a lot easier than you may think. This was done with Woodland Scenic snow detail and a can of Krylon white spray paint. Literally as simple as that. Using the white spray paint, I would follow the edges of the shrubs, more in bursts so I didn't just spray paint them all white, and did the same along the sides of the mountain. Again, I wanted the ice to look like it had frozen over, and the white really helped to do that. Once everything had dried, I would test fit the track, make sure it sat perfectly on top, and that, ladies and gentlemen, completed the build. I did add a little more detail, as well as a boat which is completely frozen over in the water. I have no clue who this belongs to, but poor guy. And would like to add trees and some other small stuff with time. But for now, and in a single night, this is where I managed to get with the layout. And now that I've told you how I did it, let me show you it in action. As always, guys, thanks again for watching, and I apologize for this video being a little shorter than normal. If I'm honest, this project was just a really quick one. It all came together in a single night, and there's not really a lot to talk about. It's just an idea I had that thankfully turned out pretty cool, and if I can do this, quite literally anybody can. So if any of you guys want to give it a shot, I highly recommend you do. This was super fun to do, and I feel like it would be for you guys too. Thanks again, guys, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. I'll be straight up honest with you guys. The last time you saw the layout, it was kind of mid. I know I said I didn't want to add grass and all of that. Things have changed, of course. Every time you guys see my layout, something is drastically different, and don't expect things to be different this time. Being completely and totally honest with you guys, I'm one of those people who, whenever they're down or maybe in a rut, decide to throw themselves into a project. And recently, unfortunately, my dog passed away, so of course I was a bit down. And as such, for a while I was back and forth on what I wanted that new project to be. What I ended up ultimately doing was deciding to make a layout that was, well, worthy of being called a layout. The reason I didn't add grass last time really was because I didn't want to use a grass mat, but had never really experimented with turf or used anything that wasn't already pre-made. Over time, this was something that kinda bugged me, so it was inevitable that I'd eventually crack and make a new one, and do my best to get a lot more hands-on than I had before, with almost any layout I had ever made. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce I've gotten pretty far into that, and if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen quite a few updates on it, but I figured it's worth making an actual video for it too. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's finally take another look at my layout, or as I like to call it, well, I actually don't have a name for it yet. It's kind of just a branch line. I don't know what it is. Just you'll see. Let's go ahead and jump into it. I guess we'll start with where I started. After a quick trip to the hobby store, I picked up the Woodland Scenics 4x8 Mountain Ridge, which as a kit makes a mountain, a tunnel, and a small ridge. I guess the name Mountain Ridge kind of works, doesn't it? This kit provided all of the groundwork I would need to make both, but of course I would add a little bit to mine. The first thing I did was use the cutouts that the kit provided, and applied that where I wanted the tunnel to go. I stuffed this with newspaper, different bags, even van shoeboxes, as you can see, which ultimately would make the tunnel, and once that was done, taped it all off. The kit comes with Woodland Scenic's plaster cloth, which is also what I used to make the mountain surface. This took quite a bit of time, and the tunnel itself used a whole roll, so I had to go buy more for the ridge. But as a material, was very easy to use and very quickly had the mountain made. After I got more plaster cloth, the ridge was made, and next would come painting both. With the rock surfaces, I decided to paint them both black and then go over them with a gray primer. I used the gray primer a bit more sparingly though, I guess to replicate smaller dig-ins or caves. Next, a layer of brown paint was added to both, to simulate a sort of dirt, and then to the entire table, and of course following this came the grass, which also was provided in the kit, specifically the medium green coarse accent, which was put over the entire table, and layered on until I got it where I wanted it to be. Next came ballasting the tracks, which I did with Kato ballast, and another layer of green to tidy that up, as well as a bit of brown and yellow grass to try to mix it up a bit. This all was glued down with scenic cement, and very quickly I would start making bushes and shrubs with clump foliage. Then came other small details like telephone poles and trees, but if there's one thing every layout needs, it's light. And of course, pretty quickly the engine house was lit up too, even having a few lampposts outside of it. I also decided to add a light to the coaling depot I made, which resides on one of the sidings, and my favorite light up feature of all is the pillboard in the middle, which displays a owl smoking a cigar. What a vibe, and that soon will be joined by many other details too, but I don't want to spoil too much yet. Since then, I've added quite a bit more, like more trees, even a lorry on the side of the cliff, as well as these trees which were inspired by Haunted Henry, and will continue to add things as I go. Since this layout is largely just what I want it to be, it's not really based on anything, which means anything could be in it, so expect a lot. So far I've even got deer. I'm hoping that's just scratching the surface with what this layout will be though, and now that I've made it this far into it, hopefully I can't go back now. I'm happy to have a layout I'm finally more satisfied with, and that hopefully I won't ever want to change. I feel like the layouts I made previously kept changing because there was so much I wanted them to be. What I wanted this layout to be was just that. So hopefully from here on out, the updates will be a little easier to follow. And with all of that being said, let's see the layout in action. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for even more train content, and I'm happy to say I'm finally back to making content again. Like I said before, I've been pretty down lately and wanted to take a step back to make sure I was really all there. You can't really give 100% of yourself if you don't have it. But thankfully I'm thinking I'm pretty well past that. And working on this layout and this project has been a huge help. So hopefully you guys enjoy seeing where I've been, and hopefully I actually stick with it this time and it's not all for nothing. But I really have a feeling this time it won't be. And if you guys have any recommendations, be sure to leave them down below. Really quick, as always, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. Videos and projects like this would not be possible without them. And if you ever want to support the channel more, consider checking that out too. I feel like I'm rambling now, so as always guys, thanks again for watching. And with all of that being said, hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Some CJ from Grove Street, land of the heinous, gangbangers and cold heat. And Los Santos neighbors get no sleep, beefing with anybody, competing even police. Cold feet and green rags and gold feet, lads with the flag on the strap,
Admittedly, this video is going to be a short one, but it's something I said I'd update you guys on, so I'm still going to do it. If you've seen my recent layout update, you know about the small ridge that's behind the engine shed on my new set. And in that, I mentioned that I made some Haunted Henry-styled trees, since the way I made this set was with a Woodland Scenics kit, and it came with trees that you could make yourself. I just really didn't want to do that. Or at least stick them with clump foliage and do the traditional way. Instead, what I decided to do was cover these in scenic glue, and following that, put the same turf I used for the grass on the tree itself, giving it that really old, overgrown look that the trees in Haunted Henry had. I couldn't stop it there though. There was one thing I was for sure missing, and that was the amber lamp. And I'm working on the Fogman's. I'll get there. This was an idea I had to do. I had the extra lamp, I had the Woodland Scenics light hub, all I had to do was figure out how to do it. So first thing first, I took the lamp, primed it in black, and then painted it white in several coats, mainly to make sure the light I put in it didn't bleed through. Next came placement and finding out where I wanted it on the tree, which honestly was simple enough. It was pick a branch, stick it upwards, and leave it there. Following that, I marked that specific branch and took it off again. Since I'm using Woodland Scenics Just Plug lights, for this I used their nano red light, and ran it through the table itself. The way I plant these trees is putting small holes in the table, and then putting them inside of that. So really it was as simple as running the wire through the already there hole. I extended this one just a little bit to make sure the wire didn't get crushed, and then ran it behind the tree, with the top of the light being put in the bottom of the lamp. And with that complete, so was the tree.
Either subscribe, donate, or get the fuck out.